And first of all, the matchups are pretty spectacular. Okay, the first one we're going to get into, Notre Dame versus Indiana. This hits home with me because I'm from Indiana. Yeah. The battle of the Hoosier State. These teams haven't played each other at all. Like, it's basically, when you look at this Notre Dame and Indiana matchup, it's in Notre Dame. You know both of these teams can play in the cold. But the last time these teams played was in 1991. So it's been a little bit. It has been a little bit since these teams have played. My opinion, you said before coming in off camera that, like, you don't know what to think of this game. To be honest, I do. I think this is a pretty easy, clear-cut answer, and I'm going Notre Dame to beat Indiana. I don't even think it's going to be close because Indiana has shown me that they can't hang with some of the top teams in the country, and their schedule is not prepared them for this moment. They played Ohio State, they looked good on their first drive, and then they got smacked. And in my opinion, Notre Dame is a physical football team just like Ohio State. If you look at this Notre Dame defense, they are third in the country in points allowed at 13.6 points per game. And IU is second in yards per game allowed. But IU has a 106th ranked schedule. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm going Notre Dame. And Riley Leonard running the football, I think that's going to be a huge problem for this Indiana defense.
I agree with you that Notre Dame should win the game. They're easily the more talented team, and they have played very well, except for against Northern Illinois.
It's just nuts. I can't.
But saying it's going to be a blowout is kind of crazy to me. Like, or it's clear cut, not a blowout, but.
And it's at South Bend.
Yeah. Touchdown Jesus, shout out. But I don't think it's that clear cut. I think Indiana's a very good team. I think Indiana definitely is a top 12 team this year. Just because they didn't play great against Ohio State, which they actually did play much better. Just opportunities left them and they got blown out. But I mean, Georgia got blown out by Ole Miss this year. That doesn't mean Georgia's not one of the best teams in college football. And then Indiana beat Michigan, and Michigan beat Ohio State. So it's kind of like, ooh, you caught them on a bad day, and they actually did come in pretty well. The home field definitely matters, but the Hoosier fans are gonna travel.
They will. It's not that far.
To Ohio State.
It's not that far.
So I mean, I think it's gonna be a very good game, and I think this Indiana team, they're one of the most fun teams in the playoff. Like, it is such an exciting team to watch. When they're clicking on all cylinders, they're very, very, very hard to beat. I'm starting to convince myself the other way around.
Yeah, it seems like you are. I
haven't seen much from Notre Dame. I mean, do you have it pulled up? What's Notre Dame's good wins this year? Louisville, Georgia Tech?
Yeah. Texas A&M, I think, was a good win opening the season at Texas A&M.
Early, though, Texas A&M's quarterback was not the same as it was at the end of the season. That guy got
Louisville
benched.
was a decent win.
Yes.
You know how I feel about Army and Navy, so I'm not going to put them in there.
Right.
But, like, they were still ranked wins. I know it's not as strong, but at least Notre Dame has ranked wins. Indiana does not. They do not.
Well, how many of those teams are ranked now?
Indiana? No, none of those
Notre
teams.
Dame's wins.
Then I don't think Louisville's ranked. Maybe
no,
Army.
Not ranked.
I think Army might be the only one then.
AAC champions.
Yeah, that's a good
win.
That's a decent win.
And they beat the brakes off of Army and Navy, by the way. It was not close.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
but you know how I feel about those two games because they're not
be
on the level of like an Ohio State and teams like that.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think Indiana is good and they deserve to be here, but they don't have the talent Notre Dame does. It is a home game for Notre Dame, which does matter. And it's actually the first Notre Dame game on ESPN I don't have the year, but in a really long time because they have the deal with NBC. So it's going to be the first Notre Dame game on ESPN in a minute. So that's pretty cool. I like Notre Dame here, but Indiana, man, fun team. I would not be surprised at all if Indiana comes out with the win. Curtis Rourke's a baller, man.
Yeah, he's impressed me a lot this year, and I had a shout out to Quentin Cannon. I had him on the pod like a couple weeks ago, and he played in the MAC when he was in the MAC at Ohio. Mm-hmm. So he played against him, and he said he was a very good quarterback, and he was saying like they're in good hands. I'm not saying they don't have a good team.
The defense is feisty.
Jordan Ellison is a very good running back. Elijah Surratt, he's a very good wide receiver. He can get open, and Indiana's defense is good, but in my opinion, the way Notre Dame has been playing towards the end of the season, I mean, they've been averaging close to 40 points a game
yes.
for the last couple games of the season, and they've been hot. They haven't lost since that Northern Illinois game, and they've just been looking dominant. Like, it's not like they're in close games. Like, they're mauling teams. Like, they're destroying teams. And the way that Riley Leonard is running the football,
right?
And you compare that with Jeremiah Love, come on. I mean, and it's at Notre Dame. I just don't see a world where it's Notre Dame is going to lose. I just don't. I can't.
Did beat USC last week of the season.
And USC was decent
for
a little bit.
That was a close game.
So, like, that was honestly a good win,
That's
too.
a solid team, yep.
So you're going...
I'm going Notre Dame.
Are you going Notre Dame?
I'm going Notre Dame, but I'm saying there's no world that Indiana wins. I think it's very disrespectful to Indiana.
But who have they played?
Indiana,
and who have they... And they've looked not great against good teams.
They've looked great against good teams.
Ohio State,
not
you
Ohio
think they
State.
look good? That's the only team that they play. And Michigan has had a down year.
Well, it depends how good Ohio State is, really, because that'll determine a lot of that. Because Ohio State, I'm not so sure how good they are. So we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll move on to another matchup because we have a lot to unpack here.
We do.
So, SMU at Penn State. This one,
It's fun.
it's the third ever matchup between these two programs.
Wow.
And let's just say this.
I don't remember the matchup.
I don't know if SMU is going to be able to handle the cold weather, but the way they played against Clemson, showing resiliency, coming back, I think they can go into Penn State and win. And Penn State's had a lot of like tough games that I feel like even against Oregon, like, yeah, it was close on paper, but like I feel like they really weren't in that game.
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
they were beat the whole game, and they were able to turn it on at the end and had a chance, but they couldn't pull it out. SMU, you say the cold, and I think that's interesting because in the ACC championship, it was very cold in Charlotte.
but we're going up to
I understand,
north.
but it was very cold, and that's what I'm about to say. They did start out very slow. They started sloppy. They looked cold. So I do think that's a very interesting part of that game that I don't think enough people are looking at. But SMU still a very good, very good
I'm
team.
picking them.
You're picking SMU
I'm picking
in
SMU.
Penn State, going into Happy Valley.
Yes, absolutely. Kevin Jennings, okay, he's been absolutely amazing. The way this guy can dissect his own coverage defense is amazing. Like, what he's been doing this year, he can be an NFL quarterback at some point. I believe that. Just the throws he's been making have put this SMU team over the top. And people like Paul Feinbaum are going to say they don't have good wins, but I mean, they played Pittsburgh when they were literally ranked 17. And I know they fell off or whatever, but like that was still a hard-nosed win. In Louisville, they played them while they were ranked too. Mm-hmm. And they almost beat BYU, who was, let's not forget, in the playoff for a lot of the rankings until later
BYU?
on. BYU.
But they lost to BYU.
But they were in the
right.
They lost to them. That's what I said.
Oh,
they lost to a team that was in the rankings for a long time until they kind of fell off.
Right, but they not really. I mean, if BYU beats Arizona State, they're where, and they almost did. If they would have beat Arizona State, they're where Arizona State is right now.
And I think that's a good loss. And they only lost by 3 in that game.
Right.
So like,
no, it is.
And
SMU's a wagon.
Yeah, and they've surprised
Don't get me
everybody
wrong.
this year. I mean, who would have thought that SMU, out of all these teams, would be in? Like, first year in the ACC, they go in to Charlotte, they put on an absolute show, and they're very well coached, and they have a good defense. I'm going SMU with the upset.
It took a miraculous kick, and it was a very long one for a college kicker. And people see a 58-yarder and go, oh, NFL kickers. These aren't NFL kickers. These are kids, okay? So these kids, a 58-yarder is incredibly impressive in college football. So the fact that he hit that, I didn't think he was going to hit it. I thought SMU was going to win the game.
The thing is, their strength of schedule, everyone's looking at it. But, like, Penn State, to me, on offense all year, I don't know what they really are yet. Even this deep into the season. Like, they scored 30-plus on Oregon. And then Ohio State, they got held to 13. Like, I don't know what to think of Penn State.
Right.
And they just haven't been consistent. And SMU has been consistent. The ACC just gets a lot of hate for no reason at all.
Yep.
Like, I cannot believe it was even a conversation, regardless of how, like, okay, so if SMU lost, let's say SMU lost that game by 20 points against Clemson, are they in? Like I think that's the real question everyone wants to know here.
In theory, yes, but in reality, probably not. Like the college football playoff committee was like, we're not going to penalize teams for losing this game. So SMU could have got blown out by 50 and should have been in, but then we really would have had arguments, people mad. So I want to say yes, but maybe no. But there was no, like, in my mind, there was no argument that SMU shouldn't be in because they had a great season, beat good ACC teams, and him saying the ACC being disrespected, that is so real. There were a lot of really decent, let me say great, let me say good, really good teams in the ACC this year. Louisville was a good team. And Pitt. Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech was very good.
Obviously Clemson, obviously Miami. I mean, and then SMU, doesn't win the conference, I guess, but had the best record in the conference. I feel like that's really getting overshadowed right now in people just arguing for Alabama. So, do we need to make picks?
I already picked SMU. So.
Oh, that's right. I can't pick SMU here. I'm sorry, Mr. Mank Man. I'm sorry. Everyone's not going to understand that except for Mank, but I'm sorry, bro, but Penn State is like really good. Again, out-talented. And I feel bad for disrespecting Penn State in our last college football pod. So let me not do that again.
You did.
I think Penn State's the better team. They're more talented. In the cold, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that as the number one reason. Although they played in the cold and SMU started slow and they got it going, Penn State should be able to win this game. But I don't know. It's another toss-up. This bracket is so good.
Bracket's so good. We're going to move on to Texas. Will host Clemson.
Interesting.
Now, we were just talking about Clemson a little bit. Clemson I think they had less than a 10% chance to get in after Miami. It was before Miami lost, I think.
Because Miami.
So, this is insane. They were completely done, in my opinion, and they somehow found a way to get in this freaking playoff. And then Dabo was getting a bunch of crap for not hitting the transfer portal. And here we are.
Got his team
Clemson is in. And I said I was going to pick Texas, but I'm going to switch up.
You're going to take Clemson? This guy's picking all the upsets.
I'm going to pick Clemson to upset Texas. And to me, Texas, just that loss to Georgia, I think is just absolutely defeated them, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to come out with the same confidence. I think Clemson is a very hot team right now. Clemson, I think, getting a win in the ACC championship, that's enough for me. And Cade Klubnik, he's looked way better this year. He's looked way more consistent. And everyone's going to say, Texas's physicality. But the way that Texas has looked recently, I don't know. They just don't seem as confident of a team, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Clemson. And it's a tough pick, but Clemson is a good team. And they're very well coached.
I think what you said is fair enough. I do agree that Texas has not been playing to their standard. But Texas is, when I was watching that Georgia game, it was the first game I've watched in a while where I went, this team is more talented than us. Texas is probably the most talented team in the country. They have incredible speed and incredible athleticism everywhere. They have 2 first-round tackles. I mean, I love that Clemson got it done. I'm glad that a old-fashioned team per se got the job done. But Texas is the new school, new physical, new. I disagree with you saying they're defeated and deflated going in. I think they have to prove a point now. And that's where it gets to that, is will they be able to prove that point? And I do. I think they will. I think they will be able to do that and prove that point, and they should make a pretty deep run into this playoff. But it's college football. So Clemson's definitely, like you said, Clemson is hot. South Carolina's a great team. So losing to South Carolina is no disrespect. And then you go into Charlotte, you win a game you have to win, a must-win game, you handle it. That would make me pretty worried if I'm a Texas fan. But, And
they were pretty dominant for majority of the game, too.
Yep. They were ready. Clemson was ready. SMU was not. And it took SMU time to figure that out. But I still think, Clemson, they just don't have the dogs that Texas does, in my opinion. And Texas should be able to handle it.
I think it'll be a very good game, but I'm going to go upset on that one. This one, I think, there's Tennessee at Ohio State.
This is the one.
You're right.
This is the one in the first round.
This is the freaking game right here. Like,
can I stop you real quick? I'm sorry, but everything we've said, every time we've previewed these games, we've been like, this is such a good game. This is a toss-up. And then we go into this Tennessee-Ohio State game, and we go, this is the one. Like, this is the biggest game, which is insane. This bracket is so good, man. It is such a good playoff. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited it's finally
for real, dude.
We're actually here talking about this.
Like
this is a reality check right now. Like, someone needs to pinch me right now because I'm not sure if this is real. Like, is 12 team, like, clearly it's real, but like, this is insane. This matchup right here is, God, it's so hard to pick. Like, the problem is I picked Ohio State to win it all at the beginning of the year, so I would feel like I'm not ride or dying with my pick if I didn't pick them. But I'm going to pick Ohio State because, I mean, it's in Columbus. It's in the team that Ohio State has this year, Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Tre'Javion Henderson, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Emeka. Like, are you kidding me?
Really good.
Like, dude, this is a stacked offense.
It's very good.
You got Chip Kelly in there. And in my opinion, that game against Michigan, I just think that was an off day. Like, I just don't think they were playing well, and they thought that they were going to have an easy win against Michigan. I genuinely thought they were like, oh, we're at home. You know, Michigan's not as good as they normally are. They're going to be a walk. They're going to be a step over, and we're going to get them. But I think that was a fluke, in my opinion.
I think that too, and it was a rivalry game, like one of the biggest rivalry games where anything can happen.
I mean, you saw the fight at the end. That was nuts. Like, police were pepper spraying players. Like, I've never seen anything like that. Period.
How about all the fights this weekend, man? There were probably 5 fights during rivalry week, man. It was incredible.
It was insane.
It was
dude.
awesome to watch. But I'm sorry, but I don't mean to get off topic. That was something else. So. Oh, I did want to. I know something I want to say. So Kirk Herbstreit made a really good point on the college football playoff reveal show, and he said that Ohio State having a home game might be a disadvantage for the team and the players, especially for Coach Day, because he was saying that he wouldn't be surprised if they went out there and they were getting booed because of the Michigan game. And I think that's a really good point because he's probably right. Like, I have not seen one positive thing about Ryan Day since they lost to Michigan. And I hate to say that's a season killer, but in my mind, it definitely could be. That loss to Michigan, you could say it's a fluke game, and it probably was. But that momentum, that negative momentum, like you were saying about Texas, I think that's what's going on with Ohio State unless they prove otherwise. They're going to have to go out there and play their best ball. This has to be their best game of the year. Easily, because when they've had to show out on big time performances, besides Indiana and you know, against Oregon and against Michigan, they didn't do it. And Tennessee's really good. They've been there. They've played a lot of close games this year. They don't have any super impressive wins, but I don't know. It's going to be where the momentum goes.
Doesn't look as good, but at the time when they beat them.
Well, I mean, Alabama
was a decent win.
First team out of the playoffs. That's basically a playoff team they beat, but that would have been the only playoff game they won. They just had a lot of really close games. Like, they started the season by blowing everybody out, and then every game was 7 or 10 or 3 points, but it doesn't matter. Winning is all that matters. So I got Tennessee. I love the idea of Tennessee going into the shoe, taking down the Ohio State Buckeyes, dude. And I don't think I would have picked this if they wouldn't have lost to Michigan. I know that's such a kind of silly thing to say, but because they probably would have, well, I guess they wouldn't have had a bye. This matchup wouldn't have happened in the first round if they would have beat Michigan. But with that loss, and because of what that loss means, because it's Michigan, they might be really pissed off, but that is a real gut punch, and I don't know how you overcome that. Tennessee's great. Dylan Sampson is a top 5 running back in college football. Nico's been up and down all year.
But he's shown that he's the future.
He's performed good when he needed to. He's still young. So, again, if Tennessee loses, I think it will be because of him. Their defense is great. Their offensive line is great. Like, again, weather's going to be a big deal. How cold it is that day in Columbus is really going to change how this game goes. Imagine it's snowing. Like,
That's
imagine
why I'm going Ohio State. I think they could figure it out. Now I hear you with the Ryan Day stuff. I definitely that noise is louder than it really should be, in my opinion, because
three straight losses to Michigan.
But the pressure, yeah, that's crazy. That's
to your biggest rival.
That's wild. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And a lot of it is because of the pressure to win at Ohio State is just such. It's at an all-time high level, and especially this year because they did get a lot of guys in the portal, and they do have a lot of good players on offense, and they do have a good defense. I mean, they're literally the #1 team in points allowed on defense this year. So they are a good football team all around on both sides of the ball. Like, they can do it, but we'll see. We're gonna move on because we have too much to get into.
Can I say one more thing about this?
That
just
is
real
an
quick.
insane matchup.
One more thing, real quick. Ohio State, Will Howard has to step up. I have not seen it from Will Howard this year that makes me think
He's got to be more alert of what's going on in certain game situations.
You mentioned all those weapons. Where's his crazy passing game? He doesn't have it, and I definitely don't think he's going to have it against the Tennessee defense. Just saying. That's going to be your X factor, is going to be Will Howard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because he has to be able to manage the game, which in some of their tough losses, he hasn't.
No.
Especially against Oregon when he
folded
slid.
at the biggest moment.
Yeah, that one was not good at all. But they almost beat Oregon. So, if
Tough
it wasn't for those
situation.
mistakes, they probably could only have one loss right now.
For sure.
So, we'll move on.
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me nice. I'm from another world, baby, yeah. Red way paradise. They think I'm way too cold, cause I put my